The mess hall had 200 soldiers in it. Every one of them stopped breathing at the same time. Somewhere behind the serving line, a spoon hit the floor. Nobody moved to pick it up. Nobody moved at all. The klaxons weren't sounding. The lights weren't red. But the room had gone still, the way a room goes still when a predator walks through the door. Obsidian boots on the deck plates. Slow, deliberate, coming closer. 7 feet of black-plated silence. Violet eyes moving over the room like she was looking for a chair, and the men in it were furniture. Her people had crushed 3 fleets in 2 years. Her name was the kind you spit after saying. Queens like her never left the throne. Yet here she was, and she was choosing a bench, across from a boy who had lost everything to her war. 3 orders. That's what Sergeant Baxter Doyle hissed at me before the Queen walked in. Don't look at her. Don't speak. Don't move. She kills for less. The mess hall at Ironhold Station went silent the moment those obsidian boots crossed the threshold. 200 soldiers. 200 forks frozen mid-air. 200 sets of lungs holding on to air like it was the last breath they'd ever take. I was Corporal Rylan Cole, 24 years old. Nobody from a nowhere colony called Bronwyn, where the only industry was breaking your back for stone that paid pennies. I'd been in uniform 3 years, never fired at anything but a paper target, never seen a real fight, never seen anything like her. Nobody had, not without dying first. The Draven Empire had crushed 3 human fleets in 2 years. Their queens never left the war throne. Never. That was the rule. Queens ruled from the obsidian spires of home, and their generals bled for them across the stars. And yet here she was, 7 feet of black-plated silence, violet eyes scanning us like we were furniture, like we were nothing, like she was looking for a chair and we happened to be in the way. Queen Sethryn Vok. Say the name and you were supposed to spit after. That's what my brother Wade used to do, before Volthar, before the letter, before the box came home empty because there wasn't enough left of him to send. I kept my eyes on my tray. Reconstituted protein paste, gray, slightly warm, never so interesting in my whole life. Doyle leaned in. 58 years old, 30 years of service written in the deep grooves around his eyes. His voice was low, not a whisper, a hiss. Eyes down, boy. I know. I mean it. I know. You look up, you die. She won't need a reason. She never does. I nodded. Once, barely. Because he was right. Because he'd been in 3 wars. Because he'd buried more friends than I'd ever met. And because I could feel her. Not see her, feel her. The way you feel a storm rolling in across the flatlands of Bronwyn. Pressure, weight, something coming that you can't outrun. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, getting closer, not farther, closer. The whole room held its breath. I felt Doyle stiffen next to me. I felt every soldier at every table go still as stone. Somewhere in the back, a spoon dropped. It hit the floor with a sound like a gunshot. Nobody moved to pick it up. The bench across from me groaned, because 7 feet of alien queen was lowering herself onto it. Across from me. Across from me. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My hands were still around my tray, but I couldn't feel them. My whole body had gone somewhere else, somewhere far away, watching this happen to somebody else. Because it couldn't be happening to me. Not to Rylan Cole from Bronwyn, not to the kid who lost his brother to her people, not to me. Except it was me. And she was looking at me. You may look. Her voice came through a translator collar. Flat, metallic, stripped of whatever it sounded like in her real tongue. But there was something underneath the metal, something tired, something almost human. I didn't look up. Everyone else pretends I am not here. It grows tiresome. Still, I didn't move. Doyle's hand found my knee under the table, squeezed. A warning. Don't do it. Don't be the fool who gets us all killed. But she was waiting, and silence in front of a queen was its own kind of insult. I looked up. I looked up because I didn't know what else to do. Because at 24 years old, I still didn't know how to be brave, so I settled for being stupid. Her eyes were violet, not purple, not lavender, violet. Like the sky over Bronwyn when the first sun set and the second one was still climbing. 2 suns. That was the trick of my colony. You never had a proper night, just a purple in between. And her eyes were that exact color. I hated that they were beautiful. I hated it because Wade was dead. I hated it because she probably didn't even remember Volthar. Just another battle. Just another day. I do not know the rules for speaking to a queen, I said. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. Small. Cracked. She tilted her head. Something moved in her face. Not a smile. Something adjacent to one. Neither do I. Anymore. You're a queen. I was a queen. What are you now? The pause she took was long. Long enough that Doyle's grip on my knee turned to iron. Long enough that I thought I'd finally done it. Finally said the wrong thing to the wrong person, and finally earned the death my brother's ghost had been waiting for me to earn. I am, she said slowly, whatever the humans decide I am, that is the joke of it. She picked up a ration bar, turned it over in her clawed fingers, studied it like it was a puzzle, set it down again. You will eat, she said. I have interrupted your meal. I'm not hungry. Then sit with me while I am not hungry either. And that's what I did. I sat. I sat with a queen who'd killed thousands. I sat with the woman who commanded the battle that took my brother. I sat there, and I didn't eat, and she didn't eat, and the whole mess hall watched us do it. Nobody breathed until she stood up. Nobody moved until she was gone. And then 200 soldiers exhaled at once, and the noise of it was louder than the alarm klaxons. Doyle didn't say a word. He just stared at me, like he was memorizing my face, like he already knew he was going to have to bury me too. That night, I couldn't sleep, which was nothing new. I hadn't slept properly since Wade. 2 years, 3 months, 11 days. That's how long I'd been counting. My bunk was on the third level of the barracks, near the ventilation duct that rattled every 20 minutes when the pressure system cycled. I'd learned to time my not sleeping around that rattle. Every 20 minutes, I'd stare at the ceiling and count. And every 20 minutes, the rattle would tell me another slice of my life had gone by without my brother in it. Wade was 6 years older than me. I was the one who taught me to shoot cans off a fence. He was the one who told our father when I was 9 years old and crying about the dust in my lungs that Bronwyn didn't have to be our story, that there was a whole galaxy out there and one of us was going to see it. He saw it. He saw it, and it killed him. The letter came on a Tuesday, standard casualty notice, signed by a colonel I'd never heard of. My mother read it once, then handed it to me, then walked into the back room and didn't come out for 3 days. I enlisted the following month, not because I wanted to be a soldier, because I wanted to bring him home. I told myself I'd find whatever unit he'd been assigned to, find whoever knew him, find the piece of him that got left behind on Volthar, because there had to be one. There had to be something. There wasn't. Volthar was a graveyard the size of a continent. There was nothing to bring home. And the queen who'd ordered that battle was now sitting across from me at breakfast. I stared at the ceiling. The vent rattled. I counted. The next morning she came back. Same bench, same silence. The mess hall did its dance again. 200 soldiers pretending she wasn't there. 200 pretending I wasn't there either. Doyle didn't sit next to me this time. He sat one table over close enough to see far enough that whatever happened to me wouldn't happen to him. I understood. I would have done the same thing. Sethryn set down her tray. Same ration bar. Same untouched protein paste. "You did not sleep," she said. "How do you know your eyes?" "What about them?" "They tell your story. Human faces are not subtle." I picked at my food. "You didn't eat yesterday," I said. "Not really." "Neither did you." "I'm eating today." "Are you?" I looked down at my tray. My fork was in my hand. My hand was still. The paste was still. "No," I said. "I guess I'm not." Something moved in her face again. Not quite a smile, not quite anything. "Then we are consistent," she said. I let out a sound. It wasn't a laugh, but it was closer to one than anything I'd made in 2 years. That was day 2. Day 7, she asked about Bronwyn. I don't know why I told her. Maybe because nobody else asked. Maybe because Doyle had moved 2 tables over by then, and the rest of the mess had built an invisible ring around us, the way people build rings around a fire, watching, warming their hands, waiting for someone to get burned. I told her about the mines, the dust that killed my father when I was 15, the 2 sons that never let you have a proper night. I told her about my mother, about the room she disappeared into after Wade, about how she'd started coming out again slowly, but she never looked at me the same, because I looked too much like him. Because every time she saw me, she saw the son she still had, and behind him, the ghost of the one she didn't. I told her about Wade. I told her his name. That was a mistake. because saying his name in front of the woman who'd killed him felt like a betrayal so deep I couldn't measure it. And yet I said it anyway. Wade Cole, my brother, 28 years old when he died on Volthar, loved bad music and worse jokes, sang lullabies to me when I was 5 and had nightmares about the dark. Sethryn listened. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She just listened. And when I was done, when I'd spilled the whole ugly thing across the table between us like a bag of stones, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that stopped my heart. I was at Volthar. I looked up, slow, every muscle in my body suddenly awake. I know, I said. You know. I recognized your voice. From the training recordings, they play your speeches for the recruits, so we know what our enemy sounds like. Ah, you gave the order. I did. You ordered the second wave, the one that broke the eastern line. Yes. My hand was on my fork. My fork was on the table. I don't remember gripping it, but I was gripping it hard enough that my knuckles were white. My brother was on that line, I said. Her violet eyes didn't leave mine. What was his name? I told you already. Tell me again. Wade Cole. She closed her eyes. Not for long, just a breath. When she opened them again, something had shifted. Like she was arranging something inside herself, setting something down, picking something else up. I remember him, she said. I don't remember standing up. I remember my tray hitting the floor. I remember 200 faces turning. I remember Doyle rising from his bench, his hand going to the sidearm he wasn't supposed to have out. And I remember her voice, calm, steady. Sit down, Rylan Cole. I sat. I don't know why. My legs just did it, like they were following an order that came from somewhere older than my grief. You are lying, I said. I am not. You commanded a battle. You didn't see faces. I saw his face. Why? Because he was the last one standing on his line. He had a wound here. She touched her own shoulder. And here, her ribs. And he was not running. I couldn't breathe. My soldiers reached him. They surrounded him. He had no weapon left. He was going to die in the next moment, and he knew it. Stop. He did not beg. I said stop. He did not run. He straightened his back. He was young. Younger than you are now, I think. He raised his hand to his forehead. In the human way. I couldn't see her anymore. Everything was blurry. He saluted my soldiers, she said, and he died standing. The whole room was silent. 200 people who'd been pretending not to listen were listening now. Why are you telling me this? I said. My voice was wrecked. Because you should know. You don't get to. I do not get to what? You don't get to give him back to me. You don't get to make him a hero in your story. He was already a hero. He didn't need your permission. I am not giving you permission. I am giving you the truth, which you may take or refuse, as you wish. I got up. This time, I remembered doing it. I walked out of the mess hall with my shoulders shaking and my hands in fists and my brother's name pounding in my chest like a second heartbeat. Doyle followed me, 2 paces behind, not saying anything. Just there. I made it to the corridor before my legs went. I hit the wall, slid down. My face was in my hands, and I was crying like I hadn't cried in 2 years. 3 months, 11 days. Doyle sat down next to me. Old man, old bones. He grunted as he did it. He didn't touch me. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said, "First time." "First time what?" "First time you've cried since your brother." "How do you know?" "I've seen it before, kid. I've seen it 100 times." I wiped my face. My hand came away wet. "She's lying," I said. "Maybe. She has to be lying." "Maybe. But maybe not." "How would you know?" Doyle stared at the wall across from us. His face was carved. Every line in it had a name. Every scar had a friend attached to it. "Because I've done what she did," he said quietly. "I've stood over a boy who was too young to be there and watched him die well. I remember every one of them. Every single one. It doesn't go away. Doesn't matter which side of the line you were on. The face stays." "You think she remembers him?" "I think she remembers him. Yeah, I think she does." I put my head back against the wall. The corridor lights hummed above us. "I don't know what to do with this," I said. "Nothing to do with it," Doyle said. "Just carry it. That's what you do with a thing like that. You carry it." He got up, slow. His knees popped. He put a hand on my shoulder, just for a second. "Come on, kid," he said. "Chow ends in 10 minutes. Let's get you something before you fall down." I followed him back. She was gone from the bench by then. Her tray was still there. She hadn't eaten a bite. Words spread through Ironhold like poison in a water tank. Cole talks to the alien queen. Cole sits with her. Cole cries in the hallway after. Some of it was true, some of it wasn't. All of it was mine now, and I had to carry it, just like Doyle said. By day 15, I'd stopped hearing the whispers when I walked past. Or I'd started ignoring them. I couldn't tell which. What I could tell was that nobody would sit at my table anymore except her. And she came every meal, every single one. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, same bench, same ration bar, same violet eyes watching me eat food I could barely swallow. We didn't talk about weight again. We talked about smaller things. She asked what rain sounded like. I told her it depended on what it hit. Metal roof, leaves, water, every kind was different. She asked me to describe each one. I tried. She listened like it was the most important information she'd ever received. She asked about music. I told her I couldn't sing. Wade could. I couldn't. She asked about my mother. What did she do with her days? I said she gardened. Even in the dust of Bronwyn, she made things grow. Tomatoes that tasted like sunlight. Beans as long as my forearm. That's what she did with her days. She grew things back from soil that wasn't supposed to grow anything. Sethryn was quiet for a while after that. Then she said, "Your mother is a strong woman." "Yeah." "You did not tell her you enlisted." "No." "Why?" "Because she'd have stopped me. And you did not want to be stopped." "I wanted to find him." "And did you?" "No." Her fingers tapped the table once, a small sound. "Then we are both searching," she said. "For what?" She didn't answer. Not that day. On day 21, Colonel Harlan Reeves called me into his office. Silver hair cut short, a face like weathered wood. 41 years of service, he would tell me later. He was the kind of officer who didn't waste words. When he opened his mouth, whatever came out was already thought through. "Corporal Cole." "Sir?" "Sit down." I sat. His office was small, bare. A photograph on the desk of a woman and 2 grown daughters. That was it. "You know why you're here?" "I can guess, sir." "Guess." "Queen Vok." Reeves nodded, slow. He put his elbows on the desk. steepled his fingers. You've been eating with her? Yes, sir. Every day, twice a day, sometimes 3. Yes, sir. Every soldier on this base is talking about it. I know, sir. I watched me for a long moment. His eyes were the kind you couldn't lie to. Not because he'd catch you, because you couldn't do it. Something in the way he looked at you made lying seem like an insult you weren't willing to commit. Why, he said, sir, well, why do you keep sitting with her? I thought about it. I could have given him 20 reasons. I could have said I was afraid to stop. I could have said I didn't know how to. I could have said I was doing it to spite the whispers, or because my brother's ghost was daring me to, or because I hated her and I wanted to keep hating her up close. But none of those was the real one. Because nobody else will, sir. That's not a reason. It's the only one I've got. Reeves leaned back in his chair. You know she's a war criminal. I know what she's called, sir. You know she's killed thousands. Yes, sir. You know your brother died on Volthar. Yes, sir. And you sit with her anyway. Yes, sir. He looked at me for a long time. Then he did something I didn't expect. He sighed. It was a tired sound. Old. Older than the rest of him. Son, he said, I've been in this uniform for 41 years. I've fought in 3 wars. I've buried more men than I can count. And I want to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully. Yes, sir. War has many fronts. The hardest front, the one that breaks more men than bullets do, is figuring out who the real enemy is. I didn't say anything. That's the war that never ends. That's the one that follows you home. You understand? I think so, sir. I'm not telling you to stop sitting with her. I'm not telling you to keep going either. I'm telling you that whatever choice you make it with your eyes open, because someone is going to ask you to close them soon. Someone always does. Yes, sir. He waved a hand at the door. Go. Eat your dinner. That's an order. I stood up. At the door I stopped. Sir, yes, Corporal. Did you lose someone in one of those wars? Reeves looked at the photograph on his desk. The woman, the 2 daughters, all 3 of them smiling. I lost the man I was before them, he said. That's the one I miss the most. I walked out. I didn't understand him yet, but I would. That night the vent rattled at its usual 20-minute interval, and I lay in my bunk and stared at the ceiling and thought about what Reeves had said. Who was the real enemy? I'd been so sure for 2 years. The Dravian, the Queens, the ones who killed my brother. Now I wasn't so sure of anything. I got up at 0300 and walked the corridors because I couldn't stand the vent anymore. Ironhold was quiet at that hour. Just the hum of the environmental systems. Just the low glow of the emergency lights. Just me and my boots on the deck plates wandering. I ended up outside her quarters. I didn't mean to. I told myself I didn't mean to. The door was cracked open. Not much. Just enough. Just enough that I could see her alone sitting on the floor with her back against the wall. Not on the bed. On the floor. 7 feet of alien queen folded up like a discarded thing. She was looking at the window. Ironhold's sky was purple this hour. Bruised. Not so different from Bronwyn's in-between light. She wasn't crying. I don't know if her people could cry, but she looked like someone who wanted to. I stood there for a long time. I didn't go in. I didn't say anything. I just watched her be alone. And I thought about how many days she'd been at Ironhold. 21. 21 days in a place where nobody would look at her, nobody would sit with her, nobody would say her name without spitting after. 21 days. And she'd come to the mess hall, every one of them, because that was where I was. She was lonely. The word landed in my chest like a stone dropped down a well. Lonely. The queen of the Dravian Empire, who had commanded battles that reshaped star systems, was lonely at Ironhold Station. And I was the only person she had. I walked back to my bunk. I lay down. I stared at the ceiling. The vent rattled. I didn't count this time. Instead, I thought about Wade. I thought about the way she'd said he did not beg. I thought about a boy standing wounded on a battlefield, saluting the soldiers who were about to kill him. I thought about her watching from wherever queens watch from and choosing to remember his face out of thousands. She remembered his face. That had to mean something. I didn't know what, but it had to mean something. Morning came. The klaxon for 0600 sounded. I got up. I put on my uniform. I walked to the mess hall. I didn't hesitate this time. She was already there. Same bench, same ration bar, same violet eyes. I sat down across from her. "Good morning," I said. Something moved in her face. This time it was almost a smile. "Good morning, Rylan Cole." 200 soldiers looked away. They pretended not to see. But I saw, and she saw. And for the first time in 2 years, 3 months, 12 days, I felt something in my chest that wasn't grief. I didn't have a name for it yet, but I knew, whatever it was going to change everything. Day 28 came like every other day at Ironhold, except it didn't, because on day 28, someone spit in my food. I was walking to my table, tray in hand, same bench, same seat. She wasn't there yet. She always came second. She said it was because she wanted me to feel free to leave if I changed my mind. I never changed my mind. I sat down, picked up my fork, looked at my protein paste, and saw the shine on top. Fresh, wet, not sweat, not condensation. Someone had walked past my tray in the serving line and spit in it. I sat there for a long moment, fork in my hand, my whole face going hot, not with anger, with shame, which is worse than anger, because anger burns outward and shame burns inward, and shame is what you can't outrun. Doyle was watching me, 2 tables over. His face didn't change, but his eyes did. I picked up the tray. I stood up. I walked to the disposal chute. I dumped the whole thing in. Then I went back to the line, got a fresh tray, fresh food, sat back down, ate every bite, because I wasn't going anywhere. Because Bronwyn taught you one thing above all others. When someone tries to break you, you eat your dinner, you go back to work, you don't give them the sound of your voice. She came in 5 minutes later. She saw the empty tray in the disposal. She saw my new one. She saw the way the mess hall was watching me. She sat down across from me, set down her ration bar, folded her long clawed hands on the table. "What happened?" she said. "Nothing. Rylan, just eat. Rylan Cole, please." She studied me for a long moment, her violet eyes doing that thing they did. That thing where I felt like she was reading a book only she could see. She didn't ask again, but she moved. Slow. Deliberate. She reached across the table, and she took my fork out of my hand. The mess hall stopped breathing. She lifted the fork, awkward in her clawed fingers. She'd never used one. Not really. She'd been picking at ration bars for a month. This was a fork with food on the end. Human food. My food. And she was holding it wrong. Sideways. Like a stylus. She brought it to her mouth, took the bite, chewed, swallowed. Then she set the fork back down, gently, right where it had been. She didn't look at anyone but me. "Now," she said, "no one has spit in my food either." I couldn't breathe. Because she'd known. Because she'd seen the tray in the disposal and she'd understood everything in the space of a heartbeat. Because a queen who'd commanded battles across star systems had just chosen to eat food she didn't need. Food she probably couldn't even properly digest. Just so I wouldn't sit there alone in my shame. I picked up the fork. I ate the next bite. She watched me eat, and the mess hall went back to pretending they weren't watching. Except one. Doyle. Doyle was staring at her, not with hatred, with something else, something that looked, if I didn't know better, almost like grief. Day 30, she asked about my father. I hadn't talked about him in years, not to anyone. My father was the room in the back of my house that I'd stopped going into. But I told her, because she asked, because nobody else ever did. Rylan Cole, 49 years old when the dust took him. He'd worked the mines from the age of 14 every day, 6 days a week. He came home black with stone powder and coughing so hard the walls shook. He never complained. He said complaining was for people who had time, and he didn't have time. He died on the kitchen floor. I was 15. I was the one who found him. He'd been trying to make coffee. There was still a mug in his hand, cracked, coffee soaking into his shirt. His eyes were open. I sat with him for 2 hours before I could make myself go get my mother. She didn't cry. That was part I remembered. She didn't cry when we buried him. She didn't cry when Wade left for the service. She didn't cry when the letter came about Volthar. She just went quieter and quieter and quieter until you had to lean in to hear her voice at all. Some grief, she told me once, you can't afford to let out, because if you do, you'll never get it back in. I told Sethryn all of this. I don't know why. She listened. She didn't interrupt. When I was done, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, your father was a strong man. Yeah. And your mother is stronger. Yeah, she is. You come from strong people, Rylan Cole. I didn't have anything to say to that, because I didn't feel strong. Because most days I felt like a boy in a man's uniform, playing at being a soldier, sitting with a queen because I didn't know how to leave. She saw it in my face. She always saw it. Strength, she said quietly, is not the absence of fear. It is doing the thing your fear says you cannot. Who told you that? My brother. I looked up. You have a brother. Something moved behind her eyes. Something old. Something buried. I had a brother, she said. The silence between us stretched. I didn't push. She looked at her hands, turned them over, looked at the pale scars along the knuckles. Old scars. Faded. The kind that must have been there since she was young. On my world, she said, when a queen comes of age, she must perform the trial of ascension. Do you know what this is? No. It is a rite, older than our written history, older than our language, some say. A queen of the Dravian cannot inherit her throne until she has proven she can carry the weight of it. How does she prove it? Sethryn's fingers curled inward. Slow. She must choose an heir, she said. One person, a close blood relation, usually a sibling, someone she loves, and she must, in the presence of the court, take that person's life. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. What? It is called the cost, the one you cannot pay, except that we must pay it, or the throne is refused. You had to. Yes. To your brother. Yes. How old were you? 15. I set the fork down. My hands were shaking. Because 15 was the year my father died on the kitchen floor. Because 15 was the year I'd found him. Because 15 was too young for any of it. How old was he? I said. Your brother. 12. 12. Yes. I couldn't look at her. I could not look at her. Why, I said, my voice was wrecked. Why would anyone? Why would you agree to a thing like that? Because if I refused, another queen would take the throne, and another queen would have killed my brother anyway, and she would have killed me too. There was no path where he lived. There was only a path where I lived with the memory of him, or where we both died together. So you. So I chose. She looked at me then, and her violet eyes were the color of a sky after a storm, bruised, emptied out, but standing. His name was Kel, she said. He was my only true friend. He knew every hiding place in the palace. He collected small stones from the beaches. He would give them to me, one at a time, as if they were treasures, because to him they were. Sethryn. I have not said his name aloud in 37 years. The mess hall was silent around us. Nobody was pretending anymore. They were listening. Soldiers were listening to a queen tell a story that no one in her own court had probably ever asked to hear. "I still have one of the stones," she said. "It is small, gray, nothing to look at, but I have carried it with me every day since I was 15 years old. It is the last thing he gave me, and I have never forgiven myself for the last thing I gave him." She stopped. She didn't cry. I still didn't know if her people could cry. But her hands, those long-clawed, terrible hands that had ordered the deaths of thousands, were trembling. I reached across the table. I didn't think about it. I just did it. I put my human hand over her clawed one. The whole mess hall inhaled at once. Somewhere behind me I heard Doyle stand up. I didn't turn around. Because her hand was cold. Because it wasn't the hand of a monster. Because it was the hand of a 15-year-old girl who'd been forced to kill her 12-year-old brother and had been carrying his last gift in her pocket for 37 years. "You didn't kill him," I said. "I did. No, your throne did, your people did, your law did. You held the knife, but you didn't kill him." "Rylan, I'm telling you, as someone who watched his father die on a kitchen floor and couldn't save him, there's a difference between the hand that holds the knife and the hand that put it there." Her eyes closed. She didn't move her hand out from under mine. I didn't move mine either. We sat there like that, in the middle of a mess hall on a military outpost at the edge of nowhere. Two people from opposite sides of a war. Two people who'd both lost brothers. Two people who understood something the rest of the room did not. After a long time, she opened her eyes. "Rylan Cole," she said. "Yes. Thank you." That afternoon, Colonel Reeves called me back to his office. I knew before I got there. I could feel it in the way the corridor felt, in the way the corporal at his door wouldn't meet my eyes, in the way Reeves was standing when I walked in instead of sitting. He wasn't behind his desk. He was at the window, looking out at the launch pad where a shuttle was being loaded with something none of us were supposed to see. "Corporal Cole." "Sir." "Close the door." I closed it. "Sit down." I sat. He didn't turn around. For a long time, he didn't say anything at all. Then he said, "How did she seem today?" "Sir, the Queen, in the mess hall. How did she seem?" "I don't understand the question, sir." "You do, you just don't want to answer it." I swallowed. "She was open, sir. She told me something she said she'd never told anyone." "About her brother." I froze. "How do you—" "Everything in this mess hall gets reported, Corporal. Everything." "Sir." He turned around then. His face was carved. Every one of those 41 years of service was visible in it. And something else, something I hadn't seen before, something that looked like shame. "Sit down properly," he said. I sat straighter. He walked to his desk, didn't sit, rested his knuckles on the wood, leaned on them like they were holding him up. "Corporal Cole, I owe you an apology." "Sir, you heard me." "I did, sir. I don't understand." "You will." He looked at me, and in his eyes was something a colonel should never show a corporal. Regret. 30 days ago, when Queen Vok arrived at this outpost, I received orders from Central Command. The orders were classified, they still are, but I'm going to violate them right now, and I don't care what it costs me, because you deserve to know. "Sir, they told me she was unlikely to speak to any of us. Queens of the Dravian do not converse with common soldiers. They do not converse with anyone below the rank of general, in fact. She was a valuable asset, politically, intelligence-wise, but she was going to sit in silence for however long they held her here, and silence gives us nothing." He paused. "So they told me to find her a bridge." "A bridge, sir. Someone she might talk to, someone unusual enough to interest her, someone whose profile suggested emotional openness, loneliness, loss." I felt something drop in my chest. "Sir." "They gave me a list of candidates." "Sir." "Your name was on it, Corporal Cole." "Sir." "I chose you." The room went very quiet. Somewhere outside, the shuttle engine cycled up. The window vibrated. "I chose you," he said again, "because your file said you were quiet, because your file said you had lost a brother, because your file said you were the youngest of two colonial background, no romantic attachments, no living father, an aging mother alone on a mining world. Because everything about you said, this is a boy who might sit still long enough to be seen. You. Yes. You set me up. I did. You put me in front of her. Yes. You wanted her to talk to me, for intelligence. Yes. I stood up. I don't remember doing it. I was on my feet and my hands were fists, and my face was hot and my mouth was working around words I couldn't shape. You used me. I did. You used my brother. Yes. You used him. Corporal. You. You looked at my file and you saw a dead brother and you thought that would make me useful. Yes. He wasn't defending himself. He wasn't making excuses. I was standing there, old man, old officer, taking every word I threw at him and nodding. That was the part that broke me, because I wanted him to fight back. I wanted him to be a monster. I wanted him to be the enemy so I could hate him and be done with it. Instead, he stood there with his hands on the desk and his eyes on mine, and he said, "You have every right, son. Say whatever you need to say. Don't call me son. All right? Don't ever call me son again. All right." I sat back down, not because I wanted to, because my legs gave out. I put my head in my hands. I sat there for a long time. Reeves didn't move. "How much of it?" I finally said. "How much of what she and I? How much? How much did I know, or how much did I report?" "Both. I knew everything you said, everything she said, reported almost none of it." I looked up. "What?" "I wrote 3 reports in 30 days. Standard, bland, nothing of substance. I told Central Command she was uncooperative. I told them the experiment had failed. I told them there was no bridge." "Why?" His face didn't change, but something in it did. "Because about 2 weeks in, I stopped seeing an asset in that mess hall. I started seeing 2 people. And I've been in this uniform long enough to know the difference. And I've been in this uniform long enough to know what happens to 2 people who become intelligence assets in a machine like ours. What happens? They get used up, both of them. Whatever they built gets taken apart to see how it worked, and then it's gone." I stared at him. "So you lied to your own command?" "I did." "You could be court-martialed." "I could. Why are you telling me this now?" He straightened up, walked around the desk, sat on the corner of it, close enough that I could see the individual gray hairs at his temple. "Because he said, I got new orders this morning. Central is losing patience. They're sending a specialist, interrogator, someone with methods. They arrive in 4 days. To interrogate her. To break her." I could. "They can't. They can, they will. There's a ceasefire. There's a piece of paper. Papers get moved." "They can't, Colonel, please." "Rylan." He said my first name, not corporal, not son, Rylan. "I'm not telling you this to warn you. I'm telling you because I need you to make a choice with your eyes open. Like I said the first time, because someone was going to ask you to close them. And now they are, and I want you awake for it." "What choice, sir?" He looked at me a long moment. "Whatever choice you make," he said, "when they come for her, it's yours to make, not mine. I've made too many choices for other people already." He stood up, walked back around his desk, sat down for the first time since I'd come in. "You can go, Corporal." I didn't move. "Colonel?" "Yes." "You said 2 people, that you saw 2 people in the mess hall." "Yes." "Which 2? He looked at me, and for a second I saw the young man he'd been, the one before the wars, the one before the choices. "You," he said, "and her, and I saw the man I might have been, if I'd stopped fighting long enough to sit down." I walked out. I didn't go to the mess hall for dinner that night. I couldn't. I walked the corridors instead, level by level, deck by deck, not going anywhere, not thinking anything, just walking. Because if I stopped everything Reeves had said was going to catch up with me, and I wasn't ready. I was a bridge. I was a piece of paperwork. I was a boy with a dead brother chosen from a list because his grief made him useful. Except I wasn't. Except she'd known. Except she must have known because queens are not stupid, and she'd chosen to sit down anyway. And Reeves had known, and he'd chosen not to report. And in the middle of all this, using all this manipulation, all this ugly, quiet machine of intelligence and orders, two people had actually, sat down. I ended up in the armory. I don't know why. Maybe because it was empty at that hour. Maybe because I needed to be near something metal and cold and honest. The door hissed open. I stepped in. The lights came on low. Doyle was standing at the end of the racks. Sergeant Baxter Doyle. The man who'd hissed 3 orders in my ear on the day this all started. The man who'd sat with me in a corridor while I cried. The man who'd told me I had to carry it whatever it was. He was cleaning a rifle, not a standard issue rifle. A different one, longer, sleeker, the kind of weapon that had one job, and that job was killing something big at a distance. He looked up when I came in. He didn't seem surprised. "Kid, Sergeant, you should be at chow." I wasn't hungry. He nodded, slow, went back to the rifle, ran a cloth along the barrel with a practiced hand. 30 years of service in every motion. I watched him for a long moment. Something wasn't right. That rifle wasn't on any duty roster I'd seen. Doyle's shift ended at 1800. He should have been in the barracks. He shouldn't have been in the armory alone. He definitely shouldn't have been cleaning a weapon that wasn't standard issue. "Sergeant." "Yeah? What are you doing?" He didn't look up. "Cleaning my rifle." "That's not your rifle." He kept polishing. "It is now." "Sergeant?" "Rylan." He set the rifle down, turned to face me. His face was the same face I'd known for 3 years. Every line, every scar. But there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Something tired, older than tired. Something almost like relief. "You weren't supposed to see this," he said. "See what?" "This." He gestured at the rifle, at the armory, at himself. I took a step back. "Doyle. Kid. What is this?" "You're a smart boy, Rylan. Smarter than you give yourself credit for. You already know what this is." "No, I don't." "Yes." "No. Look at me." I looked. I looked at the man who'd taught me how to strip a rifle blindfolded, who'd covered for me when I overslept my first month at Ironhold, who'd told me his wife's name once, only once, when he was drunk on the anniversary of her death. Mary. Her name had been Mary. I looked at him and I felt something inside me go cold. "You're not?" "I am." "Doyle, you can't be." 4 days, kid. That's what your colonel told you, isn't it? 4 days until the specialist arrives. "How do you?" "Because I'm the one who's been feeding the specialist information." The armory was very quiet. Somewhere in the ventilation air moved. "What?" "You heard me. You've been reporting." "I've been reporting for 11 years. I couldn't speak. "Not to the Draven," he said quick, like he needed me to hear this part first. "Never to them, never to her people, to ours, to a faction inside our own command. People who don't want this ceasefire. People who see what our economy looks like without a war to feed. No. Yes. Why? Because the ceasefire is a lie, kid. Because we all know it. Because in 6 months, 12 at most, they'll be at each other's throats again anyway. And this time we'll have lost the initiative. Better to end her now, make it look like an internal Draven move, and restart the war on our terms. Doyle. Kid. You can't do this. She's not. She's not what? She's not a monster. She's not what they said. I know. You, what? I know Rylan. I've been watching her for a month. I've been listening. I saw what she did today with the fork. I heard about her brother. Then how? Because it doesn't matter. He picked the rifle back up, sighted down it, casually. The way a man handles a tool he's known his whole life. It doesn't matter that she's a person, kid. It doesn't matter that she's lonely. It doesn't matter that she remembers your brother. Because if she goes home, if this ceasefire holds, if they let her back on that throne, she's going to command the next war too. And she's going to kill more brothers. Yours, mine, everyone's. You don't know that. I've been doing this 30 years. That doesn't mean, kid. He lowered the rifle, looked at me. His eyes were wet. I don't think I'd ever seen his eyes wet. I need you, he said. I need you to help me. What? When the specialist comes, confusion is going to be our friend. She won't suspect you. She won't ever suspect you. You're the only one in this place she'd let close enough to. Stop. To hold her hand. Stop. To put a needle in it. Stop. My voice cracked the word. The armory ate it. Doyle didn't flinch. He waited. Get out, he said quietly. No. Get out of the armory, Rylan, right now, before someone sees you here with me. Go. Think. Come back tomorrow. Or don't. But make it your choice, not your panic. Do you hear me? Do you hear me? I nodded. I turned around. I walked out. I made it 3 corridors before my legs gave out. I sat down against a wall, just like I had the day she told me about Wade. Same collapse. Because Doyle, the man who'd sat next to me on that floor, who'd told me I had to carry it, who'd been the only person in my 3 years of service who'd ever felt like family. He'd been feeding my life to somebody else for 11 years, and now he was asking me to help him put a needle in the hand I'd held that morning. I put my head against the wall. I closed my eyes. I thought about Wade. I thought about a boy on a kitchen floor with a coffee mug. I thought about a queen with a stone in her pocket she'd carried for 37 years. I thought about Doyle's wet eyes. I thought about Reeves and his 3 false reports. And I thought, for the first time, truly, about who the enemy was. The vent rattled somewhere above me. 20 minutes, then 20 more, then 20 more. I sat there in the corridor for hours. She was in her quarters, waiting for me, alone. I didn't come to dinner. I couldn't. Not yet. The next morning, she was already at the bench when I walked in. She didn't ask what had happened. She only looked at my face, my hollow eyes, my shaking hands. Then she said one word, sit. I sat. She pushed my tray closer to me. Eat. I ate. She watched me eat. She didn't push for more. She waited. Because that was the thing she had learned in 37 years of being a queen and being watched. Grief, real grief, comes out on its own clock, not yours. And she was willing to wait for mine. I didn't tell her about Doyle that day, or the next. I ate my meals. I sat across from her. I said little. She said less. But every meal she made sure my tray was full. Every meal she stayed until I finished. Every meal when I stood up, she stood too. Like something had been decided between us that we did not need words for. On day 32 at breakfast, she folded her clawed hands on the table. His name is Kane. I stopped chewing. Was Kane, she corrected. I keep forgetting the tense. Human languages punish you for that. My own does not. Your son. Yes. You had a son. I have a son. Had. I do not know which. Her voice was flat. Perfectly flat. Which is how I knew she was breaking underneath it. He was 7 years old, she said, when Zorath took him. I set the fork down. Zorath, the regent of my court, my cousin, the man I raised with, the man I trusted. Sethryn, let me finish. I waited. She looked at her hands, turned them over. Her thumb touched a knuckle, small, automatic, the way my mother touched the empty side of her wedding ring after my father died. Cain had my mother's laugh, she said. The one thing in the palace that could still make me feel young. He collected small stones from the gardens, the way Kel did from the beaches. I did not teach him this. He simply did it, which meant it was in the blood, in us, whatever it was that gathered small, precious things. He was 7, yes, and Zorath told me he was ill, told me the physicians could not save him, told me the boy had died in the night, would not let me see the body, said the illness was infectious, that my court could not afford to lose me too. You believed him. I did not want to believe him, but grief is a kind of belief. When it is offered to you, you take it. You do not check its shape. My throat was thick. I mourned him, she said, for 6 years, and then Zorath came to me and said, Sethryn, your grief has weakened you. Your rule is fraying. Perhaps it is time to pass the throne. He wanted the throne. He always wanted the throne. And you. I refused. And a week later, a treaty offer came from the humans. A ceasefire, on one condition, that a Dravian queen be sent as a hostage, as proof of good faith. He volunteered you. He volunteered me. So he could rule. So he could rule. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't stop looking at her. She wasn't a monster. She wasn't a queen. She was a woman who had lost every single thing she loved to a man who called himself her family. Sethryn, yes. Where is he now, Cain, if he's... I do not know. You don't. I have wondered, every day, for 6 years, whether Zorath lied about the death, whether Cain is still alive somewhere, in a cell, in a garrison, being raised by strangers, being told his mother is dead, being told his mother is a monster, being told anything at all. She looked up. Her violet eyes were older than anything I'd ever seen. But I have not allowed myself to believe he is alive, because to believe and to be wrong would kill me, and I have been trying very hard not to die. I reached across the table. I put my hand over hers again. Same as day 30, except this time she turned her hand over, and her clawed fingers closed around mine. Gently, so gently. Behind us, somewhere, soldiers were watching, and they were not saying a word. Because she had just said the words out loud. The words I could see now she had been carrying alone for 6 years. And I understood. I understood exactly. Because my mother had those same words in her chest about Wade, and my mother would carry them until she died. And so would this woman, and so would every mother anywhere, on any world, under any sky. Grief did not translate. It did not need to. It was the one language every mother already spoke. Sethryn, yes. I need to tell you something. Her hand tightened on mine. About Doyle, she said. I stopped. How? I have known for 2 weeks. You. He watches me the way one watches a target, Rylan. Not the way one watches a queen. Not the way one watches an enemy. The way one watches a job. I know the difference. I have been watched all my life. Why didn't you say? Because I was waiting. For what? For you. She looked at me. To choose. I couldn't breathe. Sethryn, I do not blame you if you choose him. He is your brother, in the way that matters. He kept you alive when your real brother could not. I understand this loyalty. I would not begrudge it. I'm not choosing him. Rylan, I'm not. You do not have to say it now. I'm saying it now. I gripped her hand. Both hands. The whole mess hall was silent around us. I choose you, I said. The words came out shaking. Whatever they do, whatever comes, I choose you. And if they send someone to hurt you, I will stand between you and them. I don't care if it's Doyle. I don't care if it's the whole outpost. I don't care. She closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, something had shifted in her face. Softer, older, sadder. You are 24 years old, she said quietly. So you should not have to make a choice like this. So young, about a woman like me. Wade was 28 when he died on your battlefield. He didn't get to choose either. This one. This one I get to choose, so let me. She didn't answer. She just held on to my hand. And in the doorway of the mess hall, I saw Sergeant Baxter Doyle watching us. His face was carved stone, but his eyes were wet. I did not go looking for Doyle that day. I did not have to, because Doyle had already made his own decision. And by evening, the whole outpost would feel the weight of it. I sat on my bunk that night with the vent rattling above me, and I understood, for the first time, that there was no plan I could make, no move I could think through, that whatever was coming was already coming. All I could do was be there when it arrived, standing where I meant to stand, in front of who I meant to protect. The vent rattled. I counted anyway. Day 33. The specialist arrived early. Not in 4 days. The next morning. Reeves called me at 0500 and told me to be at the shuttle pad by 06. I went. Doyle was already there. So was Reeves. So were two men in gray uniforms with no insignia. They didn't introduce themselves. They didn't shake hands. They walked past us like we weren't there and headed straight for the guest quarters. Sethryn's quarters. Reeves looked at me. His face said, "Do it now." I don't know what he meant by that, but I felt my whole life split in half at that moment. I looked at Doyle. Doyle looked at me. Something passed between us. Neither of us said a word. Doyle turned and walked toward the barracks. His shoulders were set. His stride was purposeful. He was going to get his rifle. I turned and walked toward the guest quarters. My stride was less purposeful. I was going toward a woman I'd promised to protect. And I had nothing. No weapon. No plan. Just my own body and a promise I'd made across a breakfast table. I got to her door before the specialist did. I stood in front of it. I stopped. They came around the corner, two of them. Gray uniforms, faces that weren't faces, just outlines of duty. Move. No. Corporal. I said no. Corporal Cole, this is not a request. Step aside. Sir, I'm not stepping aside. You are refusing a direct order. Yes, sir. You understand the consequences. Yes, sir. One of them reached for his sidearm. He didn't get to it. Because the alarm went off. Because Ironhold was under attack. The sound was worse than I remembered from drills. Worse than anything. It was a klaxon and a siren and a proximity alert stacked on top of each other, and underneath all of it, the very deep, very slow, very wrong sound of the outpost's outer plating taking a hit. The specialist looked up. His hand hesitated. The floor moved under us. Then it moved harder. Then a piece of the ceiling came down about 20 feet from where we were standing, in the corridor filled with dust, and the emergency lights started their red pulse, and everything I thought was going to happen stopped happening, because something else was happening now, because 5 Draven warships had just come out of hyper, because the ceasefire was over, because someone, not Sethryn, not any queen on Ironhold, had ordered this. I turned around. Sethryn's door was open. She was standing there, fully armored, obsidian plating locked down, violet eyes wide. She looked at me, she looked at the two specialists, and she said, "Rylan, just that, just my name." Come. I went. The specialist didn't try to stop me, because the corridor was on fire, because everything they had been sent to do had just become the least important thing in the galaxy. We ran, boots pounding, klaxons screaming. Somewhere ahead another impact hit, and the whole deck slammed sideways, and I hit the wall and she caught me. One clawed arm around my back, held me up. "Move," she said. We moved. We came out into the atrium, the main hub, where the mess hall was, where I'd sat with her for 33 days. The ceiling was coming down. Not all of it, not yet, but a support strut had sheared free above the mess hall entrance. It was groaning, metal bending. I could hear the sound of a thing that was about to break. I ran under it because I didn't see it, because my eyes were on the doorway to the command tower, because Reeves was in there, because the wounded were going to be in there, because I was going to help. I didn't see the strut. I didn't hear it. Not until she screamed. Not with her voice, not in a language I understood, in a sound. A raw alien sound that came from the bottom of her chest and made every hair on my body stand up. Then she was in front of me. Then the strut hit her. Then I was on the floor. Then her weight was on top of me, and she was breathing, barely. The strut had cracked her shoulder plating, split it clean along a seam I hadn't known was a seam. Violet blood ran down her arm and pooled on the deck beside my face. Warm, not like human blood. Thicker, slower. "Sethryn." "Yes." "Why?" She was heavy. I couldn't move her. I couldn't move. "Why, Sethryn? Why?" Her face was very close to mine. Her violet eyes were very close. "Because she said you were the only one who ever looked at me and saw a person instead of a monster." She dragged herself off me, slow, so slow, her plating grating against the deck. She stood up, bleeding, cracked, terrible, beautiful. I don't know why the word came to me then, but it did. Beautiful. This 7-foot alien queen with violet blood running down her arm, standing over me in a burning corridor with the ceiling on fire and her own empire dropping bombs on our roof. Beautiful. She pulled me up. "We have to move," she said. "Sethryn, your arm." "Later. Your shoulder is." "Later, Rylan." I stood. I moved. Behind us, the strut finished falling. It hit the deck where I'd been standing half a second earlier, made a crater in the plating. If she had not pushed me, I would have been under it. I would have been under it. We made it to the outer corridor before I saw Doyle. He was at the end of it, rifle in hand, the one from the armory. His face was not the face I knew. His face was a face I had never seen on him in 3 years. It was the face he must have worn on his 3 wars. It was a working face, a killing face, a face that had put itself away 30 years ago and had been called out one last time. He saw us. He raised the rifle. I stepped in front of Sethryn. "Doyle, kid, don't. You're in the way. I know. Move. No. Rylan. Sergeant." The rifle didn't waver. Neither did I. Behind me, Sethryn was silent, breathing hard, bleeding into the deck. "Kid," Doyle said, and his voice cracked. "Please. You please. I have to do this. You don't. You don't understand. I understand fine. No, you don't. Doyle, you told me once in the corridor that I had to carry it, whatever it was, that I had to carry it because that's what a man does. Do you remember?" His hand tightened on the rifle. "I remember." "Then carry this. Carry that she's a person. Carry that she remembers my brother. Carry that she lost a son. Carry it, Doyle. Just carry it. Don't shoot it." He was crying. I could see it now. Tears down the deep lines of his face. Silent. He wasn't even wiping them away. "Kid," he said, "it's too heavy." "Then set it down." "I can't." "You can." "I can't. I can't carry it and I can't set it down, and there's only one thing left to do with it." "Doyle, you need to move Rylan, right now." I didn't move. He didn't lower the rifle. Time did that thing where it goes slow and fast at once. I saw his knuckle tighten on the trigger. I saw the barrel line up. I saw his eyes lock on mine. I saw his hand shake, just a little, and I saw the exact second he decided. His arm dropped a fraction, 2 inches, maybe 3. It was enough that when he fired, the shot went through my thigh instead of my chest. I fell. I heard my own scream from somewhere far away. Sethryn moved, but not fast enough, because Doyle fired again, and this one was aimed high over Sethryn's shoulder, into the ceiling. Not at her, not at me, at the ceiling. He had made me fall to save my life. Then he had missed her on purpose. He looked at me, across 20 feet of burning corridor. He lowered the rifle. He knelt. He set it down on the deck. Then he sat down beside it. Old man, old knees. He grunted the same way he'd grunted in the corridor on day 7 when he'd sat down beside me while I cried about Wade. He said, "Come here, kid." I couldn't stand up. I dragged myself. Sethryn tried to pull me back. I shook my head. She let me go. I got to him. I sat down on the deck next to him. His face was wet. "Sergeant, yeah, you shot me. In the leg on purpose." "Yeah. So my chest wouldn't be. Where your rifle went next." "Yeah, kid, yeah." "Doyle, Wade would be proud of you." "Sergeant, not because you stopped me, because you dared to choose. That's the whole game, kid. That's the whole thing. Nobody teaches you. Nobody gives you the moment. You just have to know it when it comes. And you did." His voice was fading. I looked down. There was a dark pool spreading beneath him. Not from my shot, from something else. I looked back at his rifle, and I saw, only then, the other injury, low on his side, dark, wet. A wound he must have taken when the first impact hit back at the shuttle pad. He had walked from there to here on it. He had raised a rifle on it. He had made a choice on it, because that was Doyle. "You're hurt." "I'm dying, kid." "No." "Yeah, been dying for a while." "Doyle, 30 years, Rylan, 30 years of doing this. I am so tired. I am so tired." His hand found mine, grip weaker than it had ever been. But there. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For ending it. For me, because I couldn't. Because I couldn't set it down myself. But you made me, and now I get to be done." His head tipped forward. Just a little, not slumping, not dramatic, just setting down. The way a man sets down a rifle he doesn't need anymore. "Doyle." He didn't answer. His hand was still in mine, but it was empty. Whatever had lived in it had gone. I sat there on the deck with him for a long time. Behind us, the outpost was in flames. Above us, the sky was full of ships. But right there, on a corridor floor, everything was quiet. Sethryn touched my shoulder. "Rylan." "I know. We have to move." "I know. I couldn't leave him there. I did anyway. Because she had to live. Because I had to make his choice mean something. Because Doyle, old, cracked, tired, wrong than right Sergeant Baxter Doyle, had earned better than being left. But there was nothing better I could give him. So I gave him what I could. I closed his eyes. I said his wife's name, Mary. I stood up. I limped. And Sethryn and I went. The atrium was worse than the corridor. Dravian soldiers, real ones, Zorath's people, boarded through a breach in the eastern airlock. 6 of them, fully armored, weapons out. Sethryn stepped in front of me. She took 2 of them before they knew who she was. Because they were not expecting the exiled queen to fight for the humans. They were expecting a hostage in a cell. They were not expecting this 7-foot crack-shouldered woman with violet blood running down her arm to move like the war she had commanded across 3 star systems. She cut them down. 3, 4. The 5th got a shot off. It went past her ear. She took him too. The 6th stopped moving. The sixth was smaller than the others, slimmer, but not small, tall for his age, tall enough, a youth in armor that fit almost right. Not quite. A helmet slightly too new. The sixth lowered his weapon, then raised it, then lowered it, then raised it again. Sethryn stopped. She had her blade up. She could have taken him in the second he wavered. She did not. She stared. She stared at his shoulder, at the plating, at a small mark there, a crest, a house mark, a thing I couldn't read but she could. Her whole body went still. No. That was the word, just the one word. No. She dropped her blade. The sound of it hitting the deck echoed through the burning atrium. Sethryn. No. Sethryn, what is it? No, no, no. She was walking toward the youth, slow, hands empty. The youth, Cain. It was Cain. It had to be Cain, because there was no other reason on any world for her to be walking toward a Draven soldier with her hands empty and her blade on the deck. He raised his weapon. He aimed at her. She kept walking. Cain! The word came out of her in a voice I had never heard. Not her queen voice, not her translator voice. A voice that came from underneath 37 years of training and duty and grief and stone. A mother voice. Cain. She said his name again, not in the translator, in her own tongue. Raw. Cracked. The sound of it moved something in the air, made the fire seem quieter. The youth's hands shook. His helmet was reflective. I couldn't see his face. He fired. The shot came at Sethryn's chest. She did not move. I moved. I don't remember deciding. I remember the pain in my leg turning to nothing. I remember my body finding a piece of speed it had never had. I remember getting in front of her. I remember the flash. I remember hitting the deck. I remember the sound. I remember her scream. Again, that not translated sound. Older than language. I don't remember much after that. I heard her. She was on her knees beside me. Her voice was still speaking Dravian, still cracked, still that mother voice. She was talking to the youth, to Cain. I couldn't understand the words. I understood the sound. I understood every syllable of that sound. Because it was the sound my mother had made on the kitchen floor the day my father died. It was the sound she had made in the back room after the letter about Wade. It was the sound every mother had ever made. And in the middle of a burning atrium on a military outpost at the edge of nowhere, the alien youth, in armor that almost fit, under a reflective helmet, reached up and took off the helmet. He was 13. He had violet eyes. He looked at Sethryn. He looked like he was trying to remember something from a place so far away it was almost a dream. The rifle fell out of his hand. He said something. One word. Dravian. I didn't need the translator to know what it was. She grabbed him. She pulled him against her. Cracked shoulder plating and violet blood and everything. She held her son for the first time in 6 years. And I, lying on the deck, bleeding, I smiled. I don't remember passing out. I remember Sethryn, somewhere far away, yelling for a medic in 3 languages. They buried Doyle 3 days later. I was on crutches. The wound in my leg was clean. The wound in my side was worse, but I lived. Sethryn's cracked plating had been welded. Her shoulder would never be the same. She would carry the scar the rest of her life. Cain was in a room down the corridor, silent, watched by every soldier on the base, but alive. Reeves gave the eulogy. He wore his dress uniform, 41 years of it, ribbons and stars, silver hair combed back. His voice was steady. Baxter Doyle, he said, served 30 years in a uniform that asked more of him than it gave. He fought 3 wars. He buried more friends than he had left. He believed, toward the end, that the only way to save this outpost was to do something terrible. Reeves paused. He looked at me. He looked at Sethryn standing beside me with her hand on my shoulder. cracked, bleeding still a little, standing at attention. "I was wrong," Reeves said, "but at the last moment, when it mattered, when the whole thing came down to a single choice." He put the rifle down. He aimed away from the target he had been paid to kill, and he took a bullet meant for his own student and turned it into a survivable wound. That is not the death of a traitor. That is the death of a man who came home to himself at the last possible moment, and I will not have him buried as anything less. Reeves saluted. Every soldier on Ironhold saluted with him. Sethryn stood at attention. I did not know that Queen saluted. She did. She saluted a human sergeant she had never met until the day he had tried to kill her, and she did it perfectly, as if she had been taught, as if some part of her had always been ready to. Kane stood behind her. He did not salute. He did not know how yet, but he stood. They lowered the coffin. Someone played a song I had not heard since Bronwyn, an old miner's song about coming home, about the last shift ending, about laying down the pick. I cried. Sethryn's clawed hand tightened on my shoulder. We buried him. 3 months later, Ironhold was mostly rebuilt. The east side was still scaffolding. The atrium had a new ceiling. The mess hall had new benches. I sat in the same seat I had always sat in. Sethryn sat across from me. Kane sat beside her. The soldiers who used to pretend not to see us saw us. They nodded when they walked past. Some of them smiled. That was new. After dinner, I climbed the ladder to the roof. I was still on a cane. My leg was not what it had been. Probably never would be. Sethryn came up after me. Kane followed. He was learning our language from a medic named Vera, who had lost 2 sons of her own. She was patient. He was patient. It was working. I had a letter in my pocket. I had carried it for 2 years and 11 months. I had not opened it. Wade had written it to me before he shipped out. He had told my mother, "If I do not come back, give this to Rylan. Not before, only if." The if had come. I had never been able to look at it. We sat on the roof, the 3 of us. Ironhold's sky was purple at that hour, not too different from Bronwyn's in-between light. I took the letter out of my pocket. I unfolded it. I read it aloud. Rylan, if you're reading this, I didn't make it back. I'm sorry. I know you counted on me. I counted on me too. I want you to promise me something. Don't go looking for me in the war. That's not where I'll be. The war will try to keep me. It keeps everyone. It's the greediest thing there is. Look for me in you. In the times you were kind to somebody who didn't deserve it. In the times you sat with somebody nobody else would sit with. In the times you got tired and did the right thing anyway. That's where I'll be. That's where all of us who don't come back go. Into the people who choose to stay soft. Please choose to stay soft, Rylan. Please, I love you. Wade. I finished. I couldn't see the paper anymore. Sethryn took my hand. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, Rylan Cole. Yes. My son needs a brother, if you would permit it. I looked at Kane. He looked at me. I was learning to read faces. He couldn't say much yet, but he could smile a little. He tried one small, uncertain, and it landed on his mouth like a bird testing a new branch. I nodded. I could not speak. She squeezed my hand. Kane scooted over. He put his head against my shoulder. 13 years old. Alien. Violet-eyed. Learning how to be a boy again after 6 years of being a weapon. He leaned against a human corporal from a mining colony who had promised his dead brother that he would stay soft. The 3 of us sat like that until the second sun rose. Somewhere far below, the outpost hummed with life. Somewhere far above, the war was still happening, still greedy, still keeping people. But not us. Not tonight. Tonight we were 3 people who had lost everything and found each other in the wreckage. Sethryn Vok, queen of nothing, mother of one. Can, boy of 2 worlds, learning both. Rylan Cole, 24 years old, corporal, brother once, brother again. Not the war, not the throne, not the flag. Just this: a table, a meal, a hand held out across it. For anyone at all who had the courage to sit down.